I gotcha.
Fantastic. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for joining. My name is Candy Tillman, for those of you that I don't know. Many of you, though, I do know. I see lots of familiar names and faces, and I just wanted to thank you all so much for being here. This is going to be a fun and what we hope is a productive hour for you all. This is something new that we've been trying lately, and really the goal is to offer an opportunity for those at employers that are working on various military talent topics to come together, share, learn, network, ask questions. As with all 50 Strong events, this is a little bit casual on purpose. But again, I did just want to thank you all for being here. I'm going to pull up my screen just for a quick minute. At 50 Strong, we're really about at-scale employer enablement. And so for the time that I've been in this space, what I found is that we have a lot of resources to help military talent prepare to be ready to come meet with you. What I found is that employers have just as many questions as that strong military talent. And so when we can enable employers, that then lets y'all who have the jobs open those really strong pathways. So I really want to thank you all for being here. Those are our 50 Strong partners that make all of my work possible. So I want to thank those. Many of those are here with us today. So thank you all for joining us. We are here today to talk about SkillBridge. Therefore, I have a couple of disclaimers I'd like to point out. First of all, the Department of Defense and the service departments do not endorse any company, sponsor, or their products or services, including 50 Strong or any others that are represented here. This is a casual industry-led share session. This is overall information sharing, not individual company consulting or problem solving. The main session is being recorded. Playback will be publicly available. The breakout rooms, however, that will open for the last 20 minutes are not recorded. So if this is helpful in your conversations, I just wanted to share that. Before we get started, for those of you that are here, these are the folks that have also joined us to share a little bit about the really awesome efforts that they're leading. For those of you that are here, I'm going to encourage you to use the meeting chat. If you want to say hello, introduce yourself, tell us what company you're with, maybe drop in your LinkedIn URL so that you can connect easily with those here. Please feel free to do that. The goal is for you all to get as much out of this meeting as possible, and that includes connecting with each other. So I will ask some of the folks that join us often at 50 Strong events with job seekers to get us started in the chat. All right. All the folks that you see here are joining us today as speakers. I work with each of these leaders really often, and I see what they are doing to kind of push us all into what I call the next frontier of SkillBridge. We're all kind of voyaging together, and certainly learning together is really important. We also have a special guest here who I will introduce in just a second. But real quick, this meeting is meant for SkillBridge partners and interested employers. If you happen to be here on active duty and you're seeking SkillBridge opportunities, I've popped in a couple of resources there. Please feel free to check those out. But this meeting is predominantly meant for SkillBridge partners and interested employers. All right, today's agenda. We're going to spend about 15 minutes on welcomes and overview of SkillBridge. And then we're going to let each of our speakers spend a couple of minutes each talking about how they're leveraging SkillBridge toward their workforce development efforts, which is a really important part that I want to make sure everybody comes away with for SkillBridge. It is meant to support outcomes. And then we're going to open breakout rooms. So the way this will work is similar to how our Big 50 Strong events work. Each of our speakers can host a breakout room, and you as attendees can go into those breakout rooms and ask them any questions that you may have directly. Again, the breakout rooms are not recorded. And then we'll come back together for a quick wrap up. All right. Reminder, thank you to Chris Thorne Consulting for providing free Sherman HRCI PDCs for attending live today. Again, you must be attending live in order to receive those credits. And in order to get those, you need to email my friend Chris Thorne, who is here with us today. at chris.thorne@cthorneconsulting.com in order to get those. A little note that I'll share about Chris. He knows more about HR compliance and SkillBridge policy than anybody else I know. And I encourage all of my partners to tap into his wealth of knowledge. Chris will be hosting a breakout room alongside our other speakers today. So if you do have questions for him, he's a great resource for compliance, all types of HR related questions. Again, I want to thank you all for being here as an employer community. So awesome to see you all working together. I have asked, we have a special guest from the Department of Labor, Vets. Ivan Denton is the Director of National Programs for the Department of Labor, Vets. Ivan has joined us today. Ivan, do you mind to say a quick hello to everybody?
Andy, I'm so pleased that you invited me, and I apologize that I've kind of been away for the last couple of months, but we have been feverishly busy on actually a partnership with the DoD SkillBridge office. And I've gotten to know Melora McVicker, who is the career official who's kind of doing a lot of work that Boris used to do. So we're really trying to get closer to the DoD SkillBridge office. And I get the pleasure of representing the entire Department of Labor in the interagency TAP process. And what's cool about it is I also am hooked with Tim Winter, who chairs the employment side of TAP. And folks, we're rapidly transforming TAP employment space at a pace unseen since the beginning of TAP decades ago. And the number one program of this transformation is, guess what? DoD SkillBridge. So I just can't thank you enough for being a participant in DoD SkillBridge. And when I message to Congress and other stakeholders that we're at 14,000 and increasing each year, their mouth comes open and they go, how can we help? And normally I say, hey, look, there's plenty of experts out there. Get with Candy, get with some of the rock star employers, because what I'm finding is that the ecosystem isn't governed to the extent that maybe we would like it to be. So what's happening is you've got employers who are really moving ahead at an incredibly fast pace with full-time, literally SkillBridge coordinators to be able to move through this maze more quickly and more effectively and more efficiently. So most people that you're going to hear from, A, have a full-time veteran hiring program, and B, often will have a full-time SkillBridge coordinator to help them move more quickly, more effectively, more efficiently. So please learn from them. Candy, you're one of the best in the space. I can't thank you enough. Can't thank your employers enough. And please know I message all of you frequently when I'm, because that's my job. I get asked frequently to message, hey, how's the employment going in the TAP space? And it just continues to go off the charts. So Candy, back to you, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ivan. We really appreciate it. And I think there's a really important point there about there isn't a lot of what I'll call governance, if you will, with SkillBridge. And I think therefore it is really important that industry partners are operating in the best possible way, thinking about all stakeholders. I'm going to pull my screen back up for just a second. Important. I need you to be on Zoom 5.3.0 or later in order to move yourself into the breakout rooms. This is really important when we have 400 people on a 50 strong call. We have a lot less today because we're only employers. So if you're not on that, it's okay. We'll move you around. I'm going to give just a few minute overview of SkillBridge, the different ways to participate. And then we're going to open it up for you to hear directly from the industry leaders that are doing this every day. The key message for most of you know this, but for industry partners, SkillBridge is an opportunity to access and leverage the world's most highly trained and motivated workforce. While this is up to 180 days, generally it is not. 12 to 20 weeks seems to be the sweet spot. And again, SkillBridge is for all ranks, enlisted and officer. And so as we think about workforce needs, our civilian workforce needs all ranks, civilian, enlisted, and officer. We also know that because the DoD is paying the salary, this is a pretty large financial impact for any employer. I wanted to share a little bit about the feedback that we asked for when you all registered for this. Almost 60% of you are current SkillBridge partners and looking for best practices to scale. I'm so happy to share with you that the folks that you're going to hear from in a minute are absolutely going to be able to give you some information on that. I know that some of you are waiting on a DoD application. There are ways for you to participate in the meantime. And I wanted to share this for the benefit of our speakers, just so that you have a little bit of context. I also wanted to share, in 2019, there were 123 DoD authorized SkillBridge partners. Y'all, we have reached a tipping point in SkillBridge. I also want to share with you, this is not a DoD authorized graph. This is me tracking that website over the past 4 years and updating it myself. But I share it with you for context. There are 22x the number of DoD authorized SkillBridge partners in the last 3 years. So this shows you a little bit about the momentum. Mike Piper said something, and you're going to hear from Mike in just a second. We learn every day. And I asked Mike in front of a bunch of service members yesterday, Mike, do you feel like you're still learning, or do you feel like you've got it all figured out? And he said very clearly, oh yeah, we're all still learning. So again, I think that's a really important message. None of us are experts. Again, this is a new program that we're all trying to figure out. There are two main ways for any employer to participate in SkillBridge. By the way, you don't have to pick, you can do both. One is through establishing your own program with the DoD. The approval process does take time, but once you get it, it's your program. The second main way that any employer can participate is by working with a DoD authorized third-party SkillBridge partner. In this case, it's their program, right? So if they have certain timing or certain criteria, it's their program. But there are many third-party partners. And again, this is a way for you to participate in SkillBridge without needing to go through the DoD process. Yes, some services, Army, has their own process. Some installations do installation-specific MOUs. But what we've really found from almost all employers is that working nationally across services is really the goal. By the way, when it is your program, there is more that you have to do, right? So just keep that in mind. I'm showing you, again, just a few of the DoD authorized partners. All the ones that you'll hear from today are DoD authorized. I'm also sharing with you a few of the third-party partner programs. There are many of these. Every employer needs to pick the one that is best for their internal resources and needs. For those of you, actually, I'll skip over this because almost all of you already know this. This is the website link if you want to apply to the DoD SkillBridge office for your own authorization. Third-party collaboration, again, you can work with any third party, but this is a particularly good path for small and medium-sized employers wanting an easier and faster on-ramp to build their own understanding. Those of you that may not have dedicated military talent teams, or those of you with specific talent or location needs. Again, there are many third-party partners. Do your research. We work with tech systems. I believe Mike Powers is here today, and we'll talk about that a little bit more in a second. All right, my last slide, and then I'm going to stop. I want every employer to remember there are 4 key stakeholders to SkillBridge. And Ivan, we should probably include the Department of Labor on this slide. But for context, it is really important that every industry partner remembers we are one stakeholder. This program only works if all the stakeholders are seeing success, right? And so for us, what we can do, continue to demonstrate best practices toward outcomes, and that builds trust among the other stakeholders. All right, I'm going to stop my screen share. I would like to let you hear directly from a few of my partners that are doing some really awesome things in the SkillBridge space. I would like to invite Mike Piper from Lowe's. Mike, do you mind to just spend 3 or 4 minutes sharing a little bit about your program, however much you want to share about your outcomes, the way you have it set up? Again, each of these folks will host a breakout room if you have follow-up questions. Please also feel free to leverage the chat to drop in your questions.
Yeah.
Mike, over to you.
Sure. Hey, everybody. So Mike Piper, I run our military recruiting and engagement team here at Lowe's Home Improvement. What I'll say about our SkillBridge program is we started with one, right? That was the biggest thing for me, is I just wanted one so that way I could learn, because as Candy said, we learn every day. And honestly, I'd say every hour at this point, I'm learning something new about SkillBridge or something that I didn't know was going on. But we really started with one, and we started with one mainly to really figure out our own internal processes. How do we get them access to the things that they need access to do their job, and to learn to be able to transition into a full-time role? Because we are make sure and make it a very strong point with our store leaders that there needs to be an opportunity for conversion at the end of the SkillBridge program. That is the point of this program. It is not a free labor program. It is not a, ooh, I get an extra ASM for 12 weeks. No, it is a pipeline into your full-time roles in your stores. And with that and doing that, I mean, we are at a 90% offer rate in our program, which is exceptional. And usually the individuals that we don't offer are the ones that say retail's not for them, which is also fun, because that's kind of the point of this program as well. Figure out what isn't for you. And we've taken that and we started with that one, and now we've grown exponentially with it. So we said one, and we started to pick bases out. We were going to do training on bases. We're going to do in centralized locations. Then we realized real quick that doesn't work. Service members want to go all over the place. And unfortunately for us, we have an arm that anywhere in the United States that you go, there's probably a Lowe's within 20 to 30 minutes from where you're trying to go. So we said, all right, well, let's figure this out and let's change the program. How do we offer every store in the United States as a potential SkillBridge spot? So we did that. We said, okay, any store in the United States technically is eligible for a SkillBridge role. And then we said, okay, let's even take that even further with even more flexibility. And we said, hey, let's start a new cohort every first Monday of the month. Why not? Because I'm crazy and I'm just going to take on the biggest expansion that we've ever seen for this. And in honesty, it's really panned out really well, because we were able to, the latest cohort that we brought on in January, we had an individual that's in Alaska in one of our stores. We have an individual that's here in North Carolina. They're able to go where they want to go and where they want to separate from. Obviously, our SkillBridge does focus on our store roles. That is the meat and potatoes of what we do. We sell stuff like move boxes and we sell things. That's our business. So we focus in on mid-level management roles, ASM, and department supervisor roles, and really focus in on junior enlisted as they are separating. I was a junior enlisted guy. I got out as an E4. Had really, here in the Charlotte area where I live, it was either the banks or nothing. So I basically went and started running stores for another retailer before moving over to HR. But really, the SkillBridge program for us has grown from 1 to last year we did 75, and the goal this year is to double that number. We're adding team members, we're adding staff. Our business case is strong because we're able to say how much money is being saved through this program, as well as just talking about our program in general, our offer rates, our conversion rates. It's a pipeline that is leading to high quality, what we'll call hypo talent for our stores. And that is something that has really helped us kind of evolve and kind of move forward. But anyways, if you want to learn more, you want to learn more about how we've done that, what we've done internally to make sure that they have the right access, where we kind of started from, I will tell you, you'll think you're going to start at one point and you're going to end up 50 different other points down the road. So don't be afraid of bumping your head along the way, because I'm sure most of my peers that are going to talk here in a second as well will tell you they bumped their head several times along the way of building these programs. So look forward to talking to everybody in the breakout rooms. And yeah.
I want to give a little plug for a couple things that I think Mike has done phenomenally well, which is the way he has approached the training plans that are easily accessible. and the accessibility, particularly for junior enlisted that may not have a college degree. All right. Tiffany Doherty is with us from Johnson & Johnson. Johnson & Johnson's a drastically different company from Lowe's. Tiffany, if you don't mind, share with us a little bit about how you're proceeding.
I love this. Well, first, there's like a fist bump for the E4 Mafia. I love hearing this. I've worked in financial services and now in the pharmaceutical industry. And listen, E4 is the average rank you leave the military and we can go anywhere, right? So love to hear that piece. But yes, I always like get a little bit of a twinge of jealousy for some of the great things that Lowe's is doing based on their model of company, right? And our company, as Candy alluded to, is entirely different. So you employers who are listening, what work makes sense for your company? There are definitely some considerations. Who is Johnson & Johnson? I have to level set on that because we sometimes think we know, I know I did coming in, was you're the products around my house, but actually we are, the largest part of our business is we're a pharmaceutical company and a medical technology company. We are the world's largest, most broadly based healthcare company. And I'm not saying that as a commercial for this audience. I am saying that to say we have 260 operating companies in our business. We can't say you're going to do the same job at 1,100 locations the way that that Lowe's can, right? The jobs that we have in San Diego are drastically different. It's a whole different company than the jobs we have. I'm here in Jacksonville, Florida, where we make AccuView contact lenses versus a site where we're doing research on cancer treatments versus a site where we are producing Aveeno lotions, right? So just a vast array of things that we do as a company. And that creates a different kind of complexity of how we look at this programs like this and SkillBridge. One of the things though, that I think I will say about our company that's great is that we started really small, and we do this with most of our programs, and focus on excellence. How do we do it right and do it small? And I think that's okay. And I think that's a reminder that Michael said too, was he started with one, right? Don't be afraid of starting, but start well with who you start with. So what we looked at when we were setting up our program with that in mind, how diverse our company is we first set an intention around what's the purpose of this program. And Michael said it, that this is not a free labor program. This is what it is and what it isn't. But I want to be clear, that's not the DoD defining that. That's us defining that for our companies. The DoD is pretty broad in the definition of SkillBridge. It can just be an experience. As long as you're honest about it and you're clear about it, it can just be, we're going to retrain you and help you get a job somewhere else. There are plenty of those programs that fall under the SkillBridge umbrella. But we decided at Johnson & Johnson, these are going to be tied to jobs. Our highest risk is using the military as free labor. This is going to be tied to jobs. And so here's how essentially we look at it is we say almost any job in our company could be a SkillBridge. And that's been really cool. And it's empowered us in we just finished our first real year as an independent provider that we've been using third parties for several years. That we had people come all the way from relatively entry level, technician roles, all the way up into director level roles, which for us is very senior. I would equate that to being a colonel in our business. They have been able to fit in across the board based on their experience. That's what's really exciting to me. But we had to look at this as apply to our program. Tell us about you. We'll set some parameters around what we're looking for, but we're not having you apply to a specific job. You're applying to our program, telling us about your interests. And then I have signed up about 200, 250 managers in our business who look at that talent against their upcoming opportunities. And we never can make a guarantee. The business needs could change, they could underperform, but we do everything we can to set up the highest rate of success and to never, my mantra with managers is we never bring people in where we don't anticipate a job. The last thing that I want to point out about that, and maybe this is helpful, is we did have to decide what those scopes were though. What are we not going to do? We don't hire in volume as a company, remote roles. So we needed to look at locations. And then I made sure that we decided to only list the locations where we hire at volume, because if that one job doesn't work out, I want to make sure you have the highest potential to get hired into something else. So that meant culling it down to about 21 locations. And when we started advertising in that way, by these are the locations, tell us, and these are the functions we hire for, tell us about you. it upped our applicants to incredibly. We had 1,000 people apply last year to our program. Just by making that change, it turned it over overnight. So that's how we look at our program. Look forward to speaking to you more in a breakout. Thanks.
Tiffany, I want to bottle all that up. That was amazing. Thank you. All right. From Cushman and Wakefield, Matt, I tell you, you were way dressed yesterday, and I love the backward baseball hat today, friend. How are you, Matt? And you're on mute. You're on mute.
Sorry about that.
Okay.
I have like 3 things on my computer I have to push to get off of mute, and sometimes they work and sometimes they don't. But what I was saying is today is Go Bengals Day, as the Bengals go to win the AFC Championship and then into the Super Bowl and win it all this year. I see some heads shaking. Listen, it is our time now. It's finally our time. Hey, it's Casual Friday, Candy. I'm Matt Disher. I lead military and veteran programs at Cushman and Wakefield. Who's Cushman and Wakefield? We're a global commercial real estate company. So a lot of the companies that you're hearing from today, and as a matter of fact, a lot of you who are joining the call that are representing other companies, you are probably clients of ours. We probably somewhere along the lines have either managed properties or are managing properties or the acquisition of properties and things like that. We're not a B2B, I'm sorry, we're not a B2C. So right, we're not selling healthcare and pharmaceuticals. We don't sell hardware. We don't deliver packages to your front door in 2 days. We're not making tractors and lawnmowers and things like that. So sometimes behind the scenes, we are one of those organizations that does a lot of the different things that that have to do with where you live, work, and play. So we manage about 5 billion square feet of property around the world. A lot of what Tiffany and Mike said, I won't repeat because there are a lot of things that they said that we do exactly the same, right? So our SkillBridge opportunities are plugged into or bumped up against full-time roles that are coming open. We've opened our SkillBridge program to be any position that comes open inside of the company. So it's not 1 or 2 different job families. If somebody comes to me and says, hey, I'm a Navy nuke coming off of a submarine and I want to go to Dallas, I might just have a skyscraper in Dallas that we manage that needs a chief engineer position filled for $150,000 a year. And that's a great fit for that Navy nuke to go plug into that chief engineer position and manage that property and make sure that that thing stays up and running. Again, not to be repetitive, all of our positions, roughly 90, I think when we did stats for 2022, 93% or 95% of our SkillBridge positions intended to have a full-time offer on the back end of them. As Mike Piper said, some of those people decided, hey, commercial real estate's not for me. I don't want to stay here. I'm going to go get a job down the street doing something else. And that's fine. It's a test drive for both parties. It represents a significant cost or payroll savings, wherein if you take an intern through this program, it really doesn't cost the business anything. So there's not a whole lot of risk associated with how you take people through these programs, aside from maybe giving them a laptop and some training opportunity to come in and learn your business. But that's something we're doing every day anyway in our different business lines and service lines. If you're managing a property somewhere in a big city, you're going to have exposure to all these different people and operations anyway. And we just tie that into a training plan and allow somebody to, before they hang up the uniform, come plug into it. I'll tell you a couple of things. It goes without saying, when I left the Marines, by the way, also an NCO, enlisted mafia here. I was an E5 and I left the Marines, came out thinking, hey, I blow things up and shoot guns. Certainly somebody will want me out here in the civilian world. And that simply did not exist, right? I had to stumble and fall a couple of times. This program is revolutionary. It aims, in my opinion, it aims to solve many of the historical issues that people leaving the military have faced for generations upon generations. And we still have not really even cracked the nut, right? Like there's still a whole lot of runway ahead of us. The reason why you'll hear a lot of us sharing the same types of strategies and things like that is because we all talk to each other. I have advised or have been advised by multiple other companies, some of the other parties that you see here on the call. We have all sat down and had lunch or dinner in Washington, D.C. We have ridden scooters around that city together. Chris Thorne has the pictures. Ivan Denton, I am way overdue for a lunch with you. I always enjoy spending time with you. I appreciate you being here today as well. Stop into Cushman & Wakefield, for any of you looking to figure out how you build these programs. I'm going to drop some information into the chat. I have a team behind me that one person particularly that runs these programs all day in and out. And we spend a lot of times talking to either our clients or just any other companies that are out there that want to know how to build these programs effectively. One big piece of advice is don't overthink it. There's a certain process to get the MOU done, but really after that, don't overthink it. It's another talent pipeline that gets you top educated, experienced, and diverse talent, not to be overthought and certainly to be sold inside of your respective company and turn this into one of your staple items. So thanks so much.
Hey, Matt, that was awesome. I also gave Jamie a little shout out in the chat for a couple folks that had questions. David Ottavianelli is at John Deere. David, how are you?
Candy, fantastic. Thank you always. Ivan,
I
thank you.
suspect you may also be mentioning a rock star as well, David.
I got tons of rock stars. So Cassandra is on the call. Really, she knows everything. She can help you connect with her on LinkedIn. We're super excited at Deere and due to a lot of help of folks on this call, I learned from Matt, Tiffany, Mike, Chris, always call them for advice. Candy, you're right. Great advice. I help lead our military programs at John Deere, Army veteran, and it has been fulfilling. It's incredible to see the impact that we're able to make on service members. It's incredible to see the impact that we're making to our company. We went from 200 contact cards to over 1,000 last year, thanks to some employees like Cassie who have done great work. We've hosted over the last approximately 2 years 400, or we've provided employment opportunities for 400 service members. About half have been through SkillBridge. And we are open to all types of roles, all ranks, all occupations, and scattered across the United States, a number of different things. So given all that we've learned and kind of looking at some of the key highlights, like Matt said, some simple wins, and then communicate those internally to your business partners, what it means. And then that word of mouth grows, and then externally, because it's a whole lot better hearing it from recent service members about their path to talk to other service members about how to go about this than it would be coming from me, right, in doing that. We've had to add staff. Cassie's a great example. We're adding more, but we also engage our internal military employee resource group. Those veterans are passionate about helping service members, and they've been an incredible asset to us as part of this process. We've learned a lot. We target certain locations, certain roles. We know the paperwork. We can create training plans that actually help the service members gain command approval very quickly. And our process is really just to have that conversation with that service member and to learn what their aspirations are on three main things: timing, location, and type of work that they want to do. And one of the key lessons learned, just like Tiffany had said here, we don't discourage, but we encourage on-site, and majority of our roles are on-site, and just trying to get out of the mentality of I can do operations remotely. There's a lot of great technology at John Deere, but we haven't quite figured out how to remotely build stuff yet, right? So that discussion with service members is important to have. So come on over to our room. We're expanding. It's been phenomenal, and we can help with you.
Awesome. Thank you, David. All right. Is Mike Powers on? I think he is not. Okay. Mike Powers is lead at Tech Systems, who is a third-party partner that we work closely with. Mike is not able to join us today. I think he was actually in the hospital yesterday, so I'm going to check on him. But from Verizon, Tommy, I don't see you yet. So Michael McCoy, I will
Hey,
turn it
Candy.
over to you to share a little bit about Verizon's SkillBridge efforts.
Awesome. Hi, everybody. I'm not Tommy. I tried to dress like the picture though. I wore a gray sweater. I didn't have like another gray sweater and a blue shirt. So Verizon is kind of like Tiffany said, we have a lot of different things that are more than what you just think of that one thing, which is the retail store. And so like Matt and like Mike and everybody has said, we had to figure out what specifically worked for our different business groups and where we were. So that goes into a lot of understanding of the different base level pieces. And so I know we've talked a lot here and everybody's talked about the processes that they go through, but I think a lot of understanding that you have to do within your business is figure out what base has what type of service member that you need. Does it geographically align to you? Where do you need to go to get the talent to pull them through? Because it doesn't always match with the needs of your business. And so that was a couple of things that we learned the hard way of like, hey, post and pray doesn't always work. And so being more targeted of saying, hey, we're going to go to these events at these locations to pull these types of service members into our SkillBridge locations was one of the key things that we really had to look at and determine our strategic travel plans around that. So, hey, if we're going to go and try and get mechanics, we need to go to bases with large mechanic pools. We don't need to go to, pick a base that's really small. I don't know, Fort Piccaninny, Arsenal, New Jersey, which is geographically aligned to our corporate headquarters and where we have a lot of different types of mechanic roles. We needed to go to Bliss. We needed to go to Hood. We needed to go to Lejeune, Pendleton, places like that to be able to get the type of talent. So I think that's one of the things that your programs, figuring out where the talent is and what's your strategic involvement with that local basis. Because one thing that everybody's talked about is it's command approval. It's a commander's program. So that means they have different rules and expectations that they're looking at. So you got to understand at all these different battalions, at all these different garrisons, at all these different bases, what do they need from you as an employer to get any type of approval, access, things like that. And so understanding that, the key factors that'll help you be successful faster, because you know where they're at, you know where they're coming from, and you need to know where they're going. So everybody else has talked about a lot of stuff. So I figured something lead with what we messed up on a couple of different times as one of the things that we saw. So just throwing that out there. And then I can talk about the legal hurdles in our breakout room if anybody wants to talk about that.
Thank you so much, Michael. We appreciate that. Okay, here's what we're going to do. We are at the 20-minute mark. I'm going to go ahead and open up the breakout rooms. Couple things I want to remind you of. SkillBridge participants are DoD employees. So one thing I'm seeing a lot of lately is companies bringing in SkillBridge folks to run SkillBridge programs with nobody else to train them. Y'all, please be careful, right? Please be careful. They are still DoD employees. Labor laws apply. SkillBridge is a part of a strategic military talent strategy. I want to go back to that labor law applies part. Chris Thorne is going to be hosting a breakout room and has lots of insight. So definitely for compliance. I'm going to stop my screen share. The breakout rooms are open. For those of you that have been to 50 Strong before, you know what to do. The breakout room button is at the bottom. You may also see 3 dots under more. Click that and you'll see the breakout rooms. I'm going to ask the folks leading the breakout rooms to go ahead and move in there so I can make sure they're working. And then for all those folks that are here, you'll see the list of the breakout rooms and who's hosting each one. You can move yourself into any breakout room. The breakout rooms will be open for 20 minutes. If you want to go to one, click leave room, not click leave meeting, leave room and go to a different one. I'm going to stay in the main room. For those of you that may have questions about what I do or 50 Strong support, you're welcome to stay here with me. But my hope is that you can use this next 20 minutes to ask questions of the folks that you just heard from. All right, I'm going to take a quick look to make sure the breakout rooms are working. David, are you good? Good. Okay. Okay. I'll give us a second. Does anybody need help moving themselves into a breakout room? If you need help moving into a breakout room, please drop your name and the breakout room you want to move into